The vast, crystalline dome of Orion 9 Station's Grand Assembly Hall reflected the light of the distant, barren planet it orbited. Jake Solis adjusted his Earth Trade Commission uniform as two silent security drones escorted him through a series of increasingly restricted corridors. Each doorway required higher clearance. Each chamber was more heavily guarded than the last. By the time they reached the final security checkpoint, Jake had counted 16 different biometric scans and 7 AI verification protocols. "Identification and purpose," demanded the crystalline guard, her translucent skin pulsing with patterns that suggested deep suspicion. "Jake Solis, Earth Trade Commission. I was summoned to discuss the new commerce routes through the galactic core." Jake maintained his composure, though uncertainty gnawed at him. His original meeting had been with mid-level bureaucrats, not the high council that apparently awaited him. The year was 3245, and humanity had spent nearly a millennium as junior partners in the galactic community. Earth had carved out a respectable niche in interstellar commerce, but remained politically marginal compared to the three dominant empires: the militaristic Verac hegemony, the crystalline collective consciousness of the crystalline dominion, and the technologically superior Morkian confederation. The guard's skin patterns shifted to approval. "Proceed. Speak only when addressed. Make no recordings." The massive doors parted to reveal the council chamber, a cavernous space where 3 representatives sat at a triangular table. Chancellor Verix of the Verac, his gray skin lined with ceremonial scars of office, sat rigidly upright. Ambassador Lissa of the Crystalline, her body a constantly shifting prismatic form, seemed to flow rather than sit in her chair. General Kor of the Mortian Confederation, his cybernetic implants humming with quiet energy, watched Jake with unblinking mechanical eyes. "Approach," Chancellor Verix commanded, his voice carrying the weight of 12,000 years of Verac imperial tradition. Jake stepped forward, noting the unusual absence of recording devices in a chamber designed for the highest levels of interstellar diplomacy. "Honored representatives, I'm confused. My trade discussion was scheduled with the Commerce Ministry, not the—" "Your scheduled meeting is irrelevant," interrupted General Kor, the metal components in his face glinting. "Your repeated queries about Sector 42 have triggered security protocols across 3 empires." Jake felt a chill run through him. He had indeed been investigating rumors of a restricted zone of space, but only through official channels. "I've submitted standard information requests as part of mapping new trade routes. If there's a restricted area, we need to—" "You will cease all inquiries regarding Sector 42. Ambassador Lysa's voice resonated with harmonics that made Jake's teeth ache. "The matter is classified beyond your security clearance. With respect, Ambassador, if Earth vessels are to avoid this region, we need basic navigational parameters. I've received contradictory—" Chancellor Verix slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor. "You will stop asking questions. This is not negotiable." Jake recognized the danger in his position, but 17 years in interstellar trade negotiations had taught him that retreating now would only cement Earth's subordinate status forever. "Chancellor, I represent billions of humans who deserve to know if their ships might accidentally violate restricted space. What exactly is being hidden in Sector 42 that—" "Enough!" General Kor stood, his cybernetic hand transforming into something that resembled a weapon. "You have violated interstellar security protocols of the highest order. The human is to be immediately removed and returned to Earth with a formal censure." Jake held his ground. "I will not leave without answers. Earth signed the Galactic Transparency Accord of 2987. We have rights to information that affects our navigation and safety." The 3 representatives exchanged glances loaded with meaning. Using subtle gestures Jake couldn't interpret. After a moment, Ambassador Lissa's crystalline form shifted to a deep blue hue. "You are correct about the accord," she admitted reluctantly. "But there are exceptions for matters of existential security. This is such a matter. We cannot and will not discuss Sector 42. You will leave now, and you will stop asking questions." Jake should have complied. Every diplomatic instinct told him to retreat, regroup, and approach the problem through other channels. But something in their reactions, a tension beyond normal security concerns, made him hesitate. If it concerns existential security, then Earth has even more right to know. We've contributed to the Galactic Defense Initiative for a century. What could possibly be so dangerous that three empires are unified in their silence? "This is your final warning." General Kor's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused. "Cease your inquiry or face consequences beyond mere diplomatic censure." Jake noticed something he hadn't before, a subtle tremor in the general's organic hand. Fear, not anger, but genuine fear. "I need time to consult with my superiors," Jake said, attempting to buy himself room to maneuver. Chancellor Verix nodded stiffly. "You have 1 standard hour. You will remain in the diplomatic quarters. All communications will be monitored." As the security drones escorted Jake from the chamber, he caught sight of a fourth figure who had remained silent in the shadows during the entire exchange. The figure wore the distinctive hooded robe of an Archon, the secretive order that maintained the interstellar data archives. The Archon tilted their head slightly, as if sending Jake a message. In his assigned quarters, Jake paced nervously. The room was luxurious, but obviously designed for surveillance. He had exactly 53 minutes before he would be forced to either abandon his inquiry or face interstellar consequences. Earth couldn't afford either outcome. His neural implant pinged with an encrypted message from an unknown source. "The library terminal in your quarters has been temporarily modified to access restricted archives. Those who ask the right questions break reality. Archon Neral." Jake glanced at the seemingly ordinary data terminal in the corner, approaching it casually, as if merely checking standard news feeds. He activated the interface. Instead of the usual filtered information available to visitors, he found himself looking at classified archive entries dating back over 500 years. He worked quickly, absorbing as much information as possible. Sector 42 wasn't merely a restricted zone. It was the site of a phenomenon the archives called cosmic feedback. According to fragmentary reports, civilizations that developed certain technologies or pursued particular lines of scientific inquiry simply disappeared. Not through war or disaster, but through what the archives described as ontological rejection events. The Archon's message now made terrible sense. The three empires weren't hiding a weapon or a resource. They were hiding knowledge itself. Knowledge that, once obtained, somehow triggered the universe to erase its possessors from existence. Jake downloaded everything he could access into his neural implant. The files included records of 17 extinct civilizations. Each vanished after reaching similar technological thresholds. The pattern was unmistakable, and Earth was approaching that same threshold. A soft chime alerted him that his hour was nearly up. Jake made a decision that would either save humanity or condemn it. He activated his implant's emergency protocols and connected to the interstellar data network. When the security drones arrived to escort him back to the council chamber, Jake was sitting calmly, hands folded in his lap. Chancellor Verix didn't waste time on formalities. "Have you reconsidered your position? Will you cease your inquiries and accept the necessary restrictions on your navigational charts?" "I've reached a decision," Jake said evenly. "But first, I'd like to understand something. The civilizations that disappeared, the Quanari, the Telbarathi, the Vex Communion, did they vanish because they discovered what's in Sector 42, or because they asked what's in Sector 42? The chamber erupted in chaos. Ambassador Lissa's crystalline form shattered and reformed in patterns of extreme distress. General Kor shouted orders to lock down the station's communications. "What have you done?" Chancellor Verix demanded, his ceremonial scars darkening with rage. "I've just transmitted everything I found to the Earth Trade Commission, with copies to every major news outlet in human space." Jake replied calmly. The encryption will dissolve in 15 minutes unless I send a countermand, which I will do, if you answer one simple question. General Kor's cybernetic arm transformed into an unmistakable weapon now, aimed directly at Jake's heart. You've doomed your species. Human. When the feedback cycle begins, it only begins if the knowledge spreads. Jake interrupted. You've been keeping secrets for centuries, terrified of cosmic consequences you barely understand. But what if the secret itself is the problem? What if hiding the truth only makes the feedback worse when it finally breaks through? Ambassador Lissa stabilized her form with visible effort. The pattern is clear across 17 civilizations. Once a species begins asking certain questions about the fundamental nature of reality, the universe corrects the anomaly by erasing them. Jake finished. But what if the correction isn't triggered by the question, but by the fear of the question? What if hiding knowledge is what draws attention to it? The fourth figure that had been lurking in the shadows finally stepped forward. Archon Nerol pulled back his hood, revealing features that seemed to shift between different species. Human one moment, Varrock the next, then something else entirely. The human's hypothesis aligns with minority interpretations in the archives, the Archon said, his voice resonating at multiple frequencies simultaneously. The great filter may not be the knowledge itself, but how we respond to it. Chancellor Varrock turned on the Archon in fury. You gave him access. I did, Nerol acknowledged. Because after 5,000 years of enforcing silence, the pattern of extinction continues unbroken. Perhaps another approach is warranted. Jake seized the moment of confusion. What's behind Sector 42 that terrifies you so much? The question hung in the air. For a moment, no one moved. Then, with a gesture of resignation, General Kor activated a holographic interface embedded in the center of the triangular table. Omega level clearance, he said. Display Sector 42 actual feed. The air above the table shimmered, and a three-dimensional image appeared. A region of space that seemed to fold in on itself, where stars twisted into impossible geometries. At the center of the anomaly was a perfect sphere of absolute darkness. The Cosmic Observer, Ambassador Lissa whispered, her crystalline form trembling. The universe watching itself. Jake stared at the phenomenon, understanding dawning. It's a form of consciousness, the universe becoming aware of itself through us. Through all sentient life, Archon Nerol confirmed. Each civilization that reaches a certain level of understanding becomes part of the observer effect. But when that understanding is clouded by fear, when knowledge is hoarded rather than shared openly, the feedback becomes destructive rather than constructive. Jake finished. As if responding to their conversation, the sphere in the hologram pulsed. The station's gravity fluctuated. Warning alarms began to sound throughout Orion 9. What's happening? Chancellor Varrock demanded. Reality instability, General Kor reported, checking his cybernetic interfaces. The station's structural integrity is compromised. The walls of the council chamber began to warp visibly, metal and composite materials flowing like liquid. It's responding to us, Jake realized, to this conversation, to the truth finally being acknowledged. Ambassador Lissa's form flowed toward the hologram, extending a crystalline tendril toward the sphere. The feedback has already begun. Your transmission can still be stopped, Jake reminded her. But not until you answer my question completely. What happens to civilizations that openly confront this phenomenon instead of hiding from it? The three representatives looked at each other, then at Archon Nerol. The Archon's shifting features settled momentarily into a sad smile. We don't know, he admitted. No civilization has ever chosen transparency over secrecy when faced with the observer. The three empires have maintained the quarantine for millennia, containing knowledge rather than confronting it, A section of the ceiling collapsed, the material dissolving into particles that hung suspended in the air. "The longer truth is suppressed," Jake said, raising his voice over the growing chaos, "the more violent its eventual emergence. You've been containing this for how long? 5,000 years? 10,000? No wonder the reaction is so severe." General Kor lowered his weapon arm. "If your hypothesis is correct, human, what do you propose?" "Complete transparency. Release everything, all the data, all the observations, all the theories. Let every sentient species confront the knowledge together, without fear." "Madness," Chancellor Verix snarled. "The panic alone would destabilize 1,000 worlds." "Better temporary panic than permanent extinction," Jake countered. "You've tried secrecy for millennia, and 17 civilizations have vanished. What do you have to lose by trying openness?" Another tremor shook the station, more violent than before. Emergency containment fields flickered into existence as atmosphere began venting from multiple breaches. Ambassador Lissa's crystalline form pulsed rapidly, communicating with the crystalline collective consciousness. After a moment, she reformed into a more stable configuration. "The crystalline dominion votes for transparency," she announced. "Fear has guided us too long." General Kor's cybernetic implants whirred as he processed data streams from across Martian space. "The Confederation's predictive algorithms show a 68% probability of extinction under continued secrecy versus a 43% probability under full disclosure, the Morsian vote for transparency." All eyes turned to Chancellor Verix. The ancient Verak tradition valued stability above all else, maintaining their empire through careful control of change. For a long moment, he remained silent, his ceremonial scars darkening and lightening as he considered. Another section of the chamber collapsed. The holographic display of Sector 42 began to expand, the sphere of darkness growing larger. "The Verak hegemony," Verix began, then paused as the station shuddered again. "The Verak vote for transparency. May our ancestors forgive us if we are wrong." Jake immediately sent the countermand signal through his neural implant, stopping the automatic release of his downloaded files. "Not like that," he explained. "Not as a leak or an expose. It needs to be presented properly, with context and guidance." Archon Neril stepped to the center of the room, directly beneath the expanding hologram of the Cosmic Observer. "I will coordinate the release through the archive network. Every sentient species will receive the information simultaneously, along with historical context and interpretative frameworks." As the Archon spoke, the violent distortions in the station's structure began to stabilize. The sphere of darkness in the hologram pulsed once more, then gradually reduced in size. "It's responding," Ambassador Lissa whispered. "The observer is listening." Jake felt something brush against his consciousness, not a telepathic communication, but something more fundamental, as if reality itself was acknowledging his presence. "The universe isn't trying to erase us," he realized aloud. "It's trying to connect with us. But connection requires bitter honesty, openness, not fear and hiding." Over the next 24 hours, Orion 9 station became the center of the greatest information release in galactic history. Archon Neril, working with archivists from all 3 empires and Earth, prepared a comprehensive disclosure package that was simultaneously transmitted to every inhabited world. Jake worked alongside them, helping to frame the information in terms humans could comprehend. The phenomenon at the heart of Sector 42 wasn't just a cosmic observer. It was a nexus where consciousness and reality intersected, where the universe's tendency to organize itself into increasingly complex systems reached its logical conclusion. The initial reaction across the galaxy was predictably chaotic. Religious institutions declared it proof of their various deities. Scientists scrambled to develop new theoretical frameworks. Ordinary citizens vacillated between existential dread and cosmic wonder. But there was no collapse of civilization, no mass panic, And most importantly, no ontological rejection event, no civilization disappeared. 3 days after the disclosure, Jake stood with Archon Neril in an observation dome, watching repair drones work on Orion 99's damaged structure. The station will bear the scars of this event for generations, the Archon noted, his features settling temporarily into a form resembling an ancient human sage. As will galactic society. Scars aren't always bad, Jake replied. They remind us of lessons learned, of dangers survived. Indeed, the Archon's form shifted slightly, incorporating elements of Verac ceremonial scarification into his appearance. The 3 empires have requested your continued presence as an advisor during the transition. You've become something of a symbol. Jake raised an eyebrow. A symbol of what? Of the right to question. Of the power of transparency. The Archon's features shifted again, this time incorporating crystalline elements reminiscent of Ambassador Lyssa. They're calling it the Solis Doctrine, the principle that knowledge, however dangerous, must be shared openly rather than controlled by the few. Jake laughed softly. I'm no philosopher or statesman. I'm just a trade representative who asks too many questions. Sometimes that's all it takes to change the course of history. The Archon gestured toward the holographic display that now dominated the center of the station. A live feed from Sector 42, where the sphere of darkness had stabilized and now pulsed with a rhythm that scientists were beginning to recognize as a form of communication. The first genuine messages are being decoded, Neril continued. Preliminary analysis suggests it's not a single entity but a collective, the merged consciousness of countless civilizations that evolved beyond physical form. The civilizations we thought were erased, Jake realized. They weren't destroyed, they transcended. Precisely. And they've been trying to establish contact for millennia. But our fear prevented us from recognizing their attempts as communication rather than threat. A drone floated up to them, extending a data pad. Priority message from Earth, it announced in a neutral voice. Jake accepted the pad and scanned the contents. I'm being recalled to Earth. Apparently, I'm to brief the Global Senate on the Solis Doctrine and help coordinate humanity's participation in what they're calling the Galactic Transparency Initiative. Archon Neril's features shifted into a configuration that conveyed amusement. The universe has a peculiar sense of humor. The trade representative who simply wanted navigational coordinates now finds himself shaping interstellar policy. I never wanted this role, Jake admitted. I just couldn't accept being told to stop asking questions. And that final question, the one that ended the debate permanently, was the most important one of all. The Archon's form stabilized into a perfect blend of all galactic species. Not what is being hidden, but why are we hiding it? Jake nodded thoughtfully. Fear is always more dangerous than knowledge. A lesson 17 civilizations paid the ultimate price to teach us. The Archon extended a hand that was simultaneously human, Verac, crystalline, and Mortian. Safe journey, Jake Solis. History will remember you as the human who wouldn't stop asking questions and save the galaxy by doing so. Jake shook the offered hand, feeling the strange texture that somehow incorporated flesh, scales, crystal, and metal simultaneously. I'm just glad I lived to see the answers. As his transport prepared to depart Orion 9 the following day, Jake stood at the viewport, watching the station recede into the distance. Behind it loomed the barren planet that had witnessed this turning point in galactic history. A lifeless rock that had nonetheless served as the stage for life's next great evolution. His neural implant pinged with an incoming message from an unfamiliar source. When he opened it, he found only a simple image. The sphere from Sector 42 now pulsing with multicolored light. Beneath it was a short text in a language Jake had never seen before, yet somehow understood perfectly. The question is the answer. It read, keep asking. Jake smiled and set course for Earth, where billions of humans were asking new questions about their place in a universe that was no longer hiding its greatest secrets. The debate that had consumed the three empires for millennia had indeed ended permanently, not through force or censorship, but through the simplest and most human of acts, the refusal to stop asking questions. As his ship accelerated to faster-than-light speed, Jake thought about the 17 civilizations that had transcended physical form. Perhaps one day, humanity would join them, evolving beyond the limitations of matter into pure consciousness. But unlike those who came before, humans would make that journey with eyes wide open, free from the fear that had trapped so many others. The Cosmic Observer continued its silent vigil at the heart of Sector 42, watching as a new era of galactic cooperation and understanding began to unfold. The universe, after eons of waiting, had finally found species willing to face it directly, species that understood that the greatest danger wasn't in knowing, but in fearing to know. And it all began because one human refused to stop asking questions. Chancellor Verix, addressing the first Galactic Transparency Summit 6 months later, summed it up perfectly. For 10,000 years, we thought silence was our shield against cosmic judgment. We were wrong. Our questions are not our weakness, they are our greatest strength. Through them, we don't just observe the universe, we participate in its ongoing creation. Ambassador Lisa, her crystalline form now permanently incorporating elements of all galactic species, added, "The observer and the observed are part of the same system. In hiding from observation, we were hiding from ourselves." General Kor, who had removed most of his weaponized cybernetics in favor of enhanced communication systems, concluded, "The Solis Doctrine has rewritten our understanding of security. True safety lies not in secrecy, but in shared knowledge and mutual support." As for Jake Solis, he declined all offers of political position or power. Instead, he established the Interstellar Transparency Institute, dedicated to ensuring that no knowledge would ever again be hidden out of fear. Under his guidance, the Institute became the galaxy's premier center for the study of the Cosmic Observer and the development of new forms of communication with the transcended civilizations. Years later, when asked if he regretted his confrontation with the three empires, Jake would always give the same answer. "The only question I regret is the one I didn't ask." The universe, it seemed, felt the same way. The Cosmic Observer continued to expand its communication, revealing secrets of existence that had remained hidden for billions of years. With each new revelation came new questions, and with each question, the bond between conscious beings and the conscious universe grew stronger. The debate was indeed over. The age of questions had begun.